Hi, my name is Eric Olson. I've been an attorney for 40 years, the founder of one of the largest consumer bankruptcy law firms in the nation. I'm now the director of THmzd, a law firm that protects seniors from collector harassment, also educate them how they can maintain their financial independence. This little video is going to talk about can a second mortgage or will a second mortgage foreclose if I don't make the payment? It's a question that comes up fairly often. I'll just explain how things work. So people have a first mortgage and often get a second mortgage. It's either maybe it's a home equity line of credit or it's a second mortgage for a smaller amount. And then seniors sometimes retire, their income goes down, and they may have some equity in the home, they may not, but they're strapped. They don't have enough money to pay for their basic needs. Now, they might have enough money to pay for the first mortgage, but the question is, do they have to pay for the second mortgage? Is the home at risk if they don't pay that second mortgage, either because they don't have the money, or by paying the second mortgage they go without medicine or food or whatever? So I guess a general statement is it's quite unusual for a second mortgage to foreclose. Happens very rarely. There's reasons for that. Number one reason, I think, is that a second mortgage would have to pay off the first mortgage to foreclose. And usually there's quite a bit owed on the first mortgage, and the second mortgage doesn't have the funds or finances to do that. There's ways that their foreclosure could be stopped that we'll talk about in a minute. And so they're just happy to have the judgment just sit there, or not the judgment, but the mortgage just sit there, and hopefully that it gets paid at some point in the future. If it doesn't get paid, they can turn it over to collection. Sometimes a collector will threaten foreclosure. Most of the time, I think they're not legitimate when they do that, because they know they're not going to foreclose. About the only time a property would be foreclosed on a second is if there's extremely small amount owed on the first. Maybe the first has been paid off and there's only a second mortgage. Then in that event, it makes sense for them to foreclose. But most of the time they don't, because they don't want to have to pay off the first mortgage. And so the lien just sits there. Now, it does accumulate interest and would need to be paid eventually if the home is sold or transferred or refinanced, or at a person's death. So what does a senior do? Okay. Sometimes people that we'll consult with that helps want to stay in their home. They can afford the first mortgage payment, they can't afford the second. And maybe they have little, if any, equity in the home. Or maybe they have some equity. And we simply explain that, well, the second mortgage, highly unlikely they're going to foreclose. And you can just consider, by paying the first mortgage, it's almost like you're renting the house. One thing that's important to know is that if you have two mortgages and your home is worth less than the first mortgage, okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a home that you owe $150 on a first mortgage and $50 on a second, but the home is only worth $149 or $145. Under a certain type of bankruptcy called a Chapter 13, it's possible to strip or eliminate the second mortgage by making payments for normally a period of 3 years of some token amount, dealing with, maybe, and also dealing with other debts that you might have. So if a senior is committed to staying in their home and they have two mortgages and the home is worth less than the first, they need to talk with an experienced bankruptcy attorney that does Chapter 13s, specifically about filing a 13 to strip or eliminate the second mortgage. I just got a call earlier today from a lady who the second mortgage had been sold to a lender, a collector, She owed probably close to $50,000 on that second mortgage, and they wanted to settle for $10,000, and they were threatening to foreclose if she didn't pay it. Well, I explained to her that that was probably a collection tactic. They were being deceptive and probably literally breaking the law. The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act provides you can't threaten a legal action that you really don't intend to take. And they kind of showed their cards when they said they were going to settle for $10,000. That collection company didn't have the money to pay off the first if they were going to foreclose on the home. But they threatened that to her to get her, intimidate her to pay the $10,000. They had probably bought that second mortgage on a market for a lot less money, and that's why they were able to offer to settle for $10,000. But here's the other problem. I explained to her, how do we know that they're legitimate and that they do hold the right to settle the second mortgage? And that's another issue that people have to be concerned about. A lot of scam collectors out there, and I get nervous. When we're talking about that kind of money, she would have to make sure, if she had access to that kind of money, that if she were to pay over $10,000, that the person accepting the money had the authority to release the second mortgage, the lien on the second mortgage. So I guess the bottom line on this video is that it's very unusual for second mortgages to foreclose. They legally can. Before I did this video, I Googled on the internet, can a second mortgage foreclose? Unfortunately, there's probably maybe a little bit of misinformation on the internet about it. Maybe a consensus is that the person, if you have equity, it depends on the equity. Well, I've seen an awful lot of second mortgages where there is a significant amount of equity, but they don't foreclose. Statistically, my experience is, as an attorney for 40 years, 50,000 bankruptcies, dealing with this all day long, is it just doesn't happen very often. But let's say they did foreclose, and you did have an equity. What are your options? Well, you got a lot of them. One is you could file a Chapter 13 to stop the foreclosure, resume making the second mortgage payments. You'd have up to 5 years to catch up on this missed second mortgage payments. You could also provide that you could sell the home, pay off the first and second, and have your equity. There's other provisions. You could file a Chapter 13, providing to make token payments, and then sell the home within a couple years, depending on where you live and what the court allows and the jurisdiction that you live. And of course, you could strip the second mortgage if the home is worth less than the first mortgage, like I explained, through a Chapter 13. But just because a second mortgage forecloses doesn't mean you're going to lose your equity in your home. That's a long procedure. But like I said, we just don't see it happening very often. We're talking about extremely rarely. Now, things may change. There's always exceptions. I'm just giving you what generally is the case. And I think sometimes attorneys that maybe are less experienced might engage in a little fear-mongering, maybe probably unintentionally, to get people to worry that they're going to lose their home if they don't pay their second mortgage. And definitely sometimes collectors of second mortgages do the same thing. What helps is we represent seniors and disabled persons who have debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop collector harassment. Under the Federal Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, when a person is represented by an attorney, collectors can no longer call or send letters in the mail anymore. They have to leave them alone. And that's what we do. Nearly half of seniors over 65 have incomes within 200% of the poverty line. They owe debt more than ever before, and they don't know what to do. And a lot of them don't realize that their income is protected. Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefits, and even small amount of wages each week, $217.50 net per week in every state, and more in some states, is protected from garnishment from a little part-time job or a small job. So seniors that owe debt that they can't afford to pay, they don't need to file bankruptcy. Many of them have no need to do that. But if they don't pay the debt, the creditors can call and harass them, and that's what HELPS does. We represent these seniors so that they don't have to be subject to the collector abuse, and they can always call us with their questions. We also help them maintain their financial independence, and that's one reason I'm doing this video, is so that seniors know what they can do. Now, here's another thought. Depending on the equity in the home, if you have a first and second mortgage, if you have a significant equity, like over 50%, 55%, depending on your age, over 62, a reverse mortgage is possible that would pay off the first and second mortgage, and then you no longer have a house payment, be able to live in the home till the day you die. You still own the home, have control of it, you can sell it if you choose in the future. Reverse mortgage regulations have tightened up quite a bit over the last few years, which is good. More difficult to get a reverse mortgage. I think I've got some videos on our YouTube channel here that talk about that. Also, you can look at our website, www.helpsishhere.org, for some articles. I don't sell reverse mortgages. Don't get any money if I refer someone to a reverse mortgage. But I educate people. For certain seniors, a reverse mortgage can be a godsend. And there is a lot of misinformation about reverse mortgages, a lot of wrong things that turn people away from them when in fact they could be a saving for them. So that might be an instance where a person could deal with a second mortgage and a first mortgage as well. So hopefully it's been helpful. And if you have any questions, or if you think this is something that you might want to pursue with other issues with helps, please call us toll free 855-435-7787. We don't turn anyone away that needs our help. So visit our website, and hopefully you've learned something, and have a great day.